and we are here today. We're at the home of Eugene and Barbara Frink, and we're going to interview Mr. Frink, Eugene Frink. Eugene, what is your birth date?
May 20th.
And what is this address? 8173 Southeast Doubletree Drive?
Drive, yeah.
Okay, and the names of the people attending besides you are myself, Carlton Cartwright. I'm the Executive Director for the Children's Coalition Incorporated. We also have Barbara Frink, Eugene's wife, and my Executive Assistant, Kimberly Stahl. Okay. Eugene, what wars did you serve in? What branch of service were you in, first of all?
Army Air Corps.
Okay. And what war were you in?
World War II.
Was that the only one?
Yes.
Okay. What was your rank?
The top rank was first lieutenant.
First lieutenant. And where did you serve?
In combat or all over?
In combat.
I served in the European theater, flying out of Italy.
Okay. Were you drafted or enlisted?
Enlisted.
Mm-hmm. Where were you living at the time?
Pauling, New York.
Why did you join?
Well, because we were at war. Okay. And I had always wanted to fly. Mm-hmm. I had read books about flying starting in the 4th grade. Never thought I would be able to get to be a flyer. And as the war progressed, in the beginning it was required that you be a college graduate. I graduated from high school in 1939. And I didn't have any money, as most people did at that time, to go to college, and I didn't get any good instruction of how I could have gone to college. I was told the best instruction from my teachers was to join the Navy and learn a trade. So I worked on construction jobs and many other jobs, even though there were a few jobs available. I signed up on a tanker, and I sailed from the port of New York to Texas back and forth on an oil tanker. I got off in the spring of 42, and at that time they had reduced the qualifications to 2 years of college or equivalent. So I went to New York City and took the exam and passed the exam, the mental exam, and then I went down and passed the physical exam. Was sworn in, I think, in July 1942. Was told to go home and wait to be called. I went home and went to work on another construction job. And I was called to go, and I believe in the first part of January 43.
Why did you choose that branch of service?
Because I wanted to fly.
Okay. Do you recall your first days in the service when you entered in?
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Or as much as you'd like? Mm-hmm.
Well, I left from New York City by train along with another buddy of mine from Pauling, who also called at the same time. And we went by train from New York City to Texas. I don't know how long the trip was, but it was a long journey. We got to Texas and we were underclassmen. So the only response that we had was no sir, yes sir, and no excuse sir.
Okay.
We policed the grounds, picking up cigarette butts, which was a terrible thing for me because I never smoked cigarettes. And we were there in that first section until we went to the next section. We learned the rudiments of military life there, how to march and how to say no sir, yes sir. And then we went to the next stage, which was schooling.
It's okay. No, it's fine.
And that was probably about eight weeks. Then the next section was the first time we saw an airplane. And it was a Fairchild, two-place airplane, pilot and and the aviation cadet sat in tandem. And my recollection is that after 6 hours I soloed. That meant I could go up and fly alone. I was in heaven.
Okay.
Went through primary school, which was 2 months. Then we went to the second phase, which was a larger airplane, a BT-13. Flew that for 2 months. Learned a lot. Instrument qualifications and so forth. Maneuvers, acrobatics. And then from there, I had an idea that I wanted to fly a P-38, which was a twin-engine fighter. So when I was asked, I said twin-engine. Actually, I should have said single-engine because... But anyway, they sent me to twin-engine school, and I flew the AT-10, which was a two-passenger twin-engine airplane.
Mm-hmm.
And after I graduated from there, I had a few days at home. Then I reported to Salt Lake City and was assigned to a crew as a co-pilot. And I stayed with that crew to Pocatello, Idaho, and to the desert in California. And then we went overseas to Italy.
Do you remember your instructors at all?
My instructors?
You remember them?
In the first phase of training, we had civilian instructors. And my civilian instructor was from Arkansas or someplace like that. And he had a drawl. I'd be flying down. He'd say, "That's right, mister. Dive it into the ground and kill us both." He talked so slowly, by the time he finished, I was almost to the ground.
Okay. All right, let's talk about the war. Where exactly did you go?
I went to Manduria, Italy. Went by Navy ship from Virginia to Casablanca. From Casablanca up to Algiers, and we spent the night there in C-47s.
Mm-hmm.
And then we flew from there into Italy.
Okay. Do you remember arriving and what that was like?
Yeah. When we arrived there, we were assigned to an airplane. And the pilot was taken out on a mission with another experienced crew. And he came back, and we flew together for a while. A lot of those people went out to learn how it was done, never came back. We call them the men who came to dinner, because they'd come to dinner, be introduced, and the next day they go out on a mission, and that was the end of them. Mm-hmm. Leaving 9 men who had been on their crew without a captain.
What was your job assignment?
I was a co-pilot when I arrived in Italy, and then later on I became an airplane commander. And my co-pilot, whose picture is over there, he lost his entire crew along the line that I just mentioned to you.
Yes.
And I was fortunate enough to get him. He was a great pilot. He could fly good formation. And he was in prison camp with me.
Now, the next question is a little redundant. So, well, obviously you saw combat. So I don't have to ask it. Were there many casualties in your unit?
Oh, yes. There were a lot of casualties.
Why don't you tell us about a couple of your most memorable experiences? And I take it you were a prisoner of war, correct?
My most memorable experience was the day I was shot down. But in the meantime, comes the memory. We were living in an old barracks-like building at the base. And the pilot, co-pilot, bombardier, navigator, many times had their cots right next to each other. So if one went down, that night there would be 4 cots with nobody in them. And if there were 2 ships, or 3 ships, even that day, that went down, 30 men went down, and 12 officers. So there would be maybe as many as 12 empty cots there staring at you at night. Another memorable experience, they were all second lieutenants practically in that barracks. And the field grade, that's the major up, are not usually put in with lower grade officers. But we had a major come into the squadron, and they put him in our barracks. And he was a typical Texan, and I don't have to explain that. And at that time, they tried to cut down on the time it took to get the airplane in the air to go on a mission. And he was stationed out on the end of the runway in a Jeep trying to get us to go sooner than we wanted to, because although it was metal runways, it was very, very dusty. So one night in the barracks, he was preaching about cutting down the time, and I said I wouldn't care if it was Jesus Christ himself. If I couldn't see down the runway, I wouldn't go. And he said, that's the reason you're a second lieutenant. So my pilot got pneumonia, and wouldn't you know, he was flying, and he took me along as his co-pilot. And I flew with him. He didn't have much experience, and I did. I flew with him several times. And wouldn't you know, he sent somebody over to check ride me and made me an airplane commander.
Wow, okay.
And also I found out about a year and a half after I was released that he had put me in and I was a first lieutenant. The first lieutenant came through about 5 or 6 days after I got shot down, and I didn't know it. So through the red tape, they put me in for a promotion to first lieutenant, and the notice came back, said, well, he's been a first lieutenant since July of 1943. Other experiences?
I want to hear more, but I want to hear about your prisoner of war experience also.
Okay. June 26, 1944, we were going to a target in Austria. And between the IP and the target, that's the initial point and the target. The initial point is where the airplanes make their turn for the run to the target about 15 minutes away. And they try to get their formations in close together and bomb bay doors open and this and that and the other. Between the IP and the target, we were struck by flak, and I got a report from the gunners back aft that we were on fire in the number 3 engine. Number 3 engine is the engine outside the right side of the cockpit on the wing, and that the flames were going back past the tail. I had many experiences with fire, so I I knew what I was going to do. So I said to Tom Begush, my co-pilot, "How's it look, Tom?" He looked out. He never said a word, but when he looked back, he had a oxygen mask on, and his eyes were big as saucers. So I said, "You take it," and I went back and took a look, and it was very bad. So I went back in, gave the alarm for everybody to bail out, and then I went back and bailed out. I was coming, well, this is the part that I'm going to tell you. I went back to bail out, and Tom was on all fours, looking down about 4 miles down. And to me, I'd have been long gone. I said, "Go, go," and he dropped down and gone. So then I bailed out. And I free fell for a little while to get out of where all the activity was. And I reached over, which became normal, and I pulled the ripcord.
Right.
And nothing happened.
Was this like when you were in midair?
Nothing happened.
Uh-huh.
Now, at that time, the pilot and co-pilot wore a different type of chute for a while. It was a backpack, and there was several pieces of metal string like that went through, and when they pulled out, there were snaps that were supposed to give away, and then the chute would come out.
Right.
So nothing happened. I pulled that out further, and they were all hanging there. They were out. And that was a very difficult experience.
I'm sure.
And so I reached around, and I was just clawing at the chute to try to get it out, and the chute opened.
Okay, because you're still here.
I've done that many times. I've done it, and most times it's in a different piece of equipment. It's never exactly the same, but the same thing always happens. The chute doesn't open.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I landed in a field in the Vienna area, very flat, lovely farm field. And as I was coming down, I was floating a little bit, and I went over the head of a man and a woman who had been working in the field, and they were running, trying to get away from me, but they were running the wrong way. They were running the same way that I was drifting. But finally, I went over their head and landed very hard. And by the time I got up and got unbuckled and everything, with an old guy, he was older than me, with a gun just coming. And that was it.
So that was in Italy?
No, that was in Austria.
Uh-huh. Okay, so who captured you?
This soldier.
And he took you to the Germans?
He took me to several ships had gone down, and they were collecting airmen from all over. They put me in a building that had bars on the walls, but on the windows, but it was sort of like an office building. And I spent 1 or 2 days in there, I think. And this soldier, he was looking for a gun, and he said pistola, which I guess would be Italian, but I didn't have a gun because my theory was if I had a gun, I'd get myself killed, so I didn't carry one. And he was marching me, and my hands were up over my head. And in my flight suit, I had a handkerchief right here, and my nose was running. So I said something in English, and of course he didn't understand. And I reached with my hand to get the handkerchief, And he gave me a belt in the back with that rifle that sent me ahead a few steps. And after that, I kept my hands in the air.
Right. Okay.
And that's the only time I was ever hit physically.
So, tell us about the rest of your experience. Tell me about your experiences in captivity and right up to the moment when you were freed.
Okay, after I was, after we were collected, they collected several prisoners. We got on board trucks, open trucks. We were taken into Vienna to the railroad station there, and we were put on trains, and we went to an interrogation center, which I have the name of, but I can't recall it now. We were interviewed there. And, you know, the first they'd say, have a cigarette and try to treat you nicely. And you just give name, rank, and serial number. And then he'd get a little nastier and say, well, I don't care how long you stay in here. That I was taken back. So they put me in this little cell, and somebody who had been in there before had made, you know, the 4 marks and the cross.
Right.
And I counted 29 days. I thought, oh my God. But 2 days, and they took me out of there, and they sent me to Le 3, which is a permanent camp. And I was there then until January 26th or 7th, and Germany was having the worst blizzard they'd had in years. And we were saying, well, we could hear the Russian guns coming in from the east. And they said, well, we're going to get out of here. They can't take us out of here. They got refugees on the train, this and that and the other thing. But on the night of the 26th or 27th, Popeye, who was a sergeant, German sergeant, came in and raus, machen Sie Licht, make light, because he couldn't find the light switch in the barrack. He found it. We all got out and stood in the snow, and then we started marching. Mm-hmm. We marched and marched and marched and marched. We slept in barns, churches, factories, and then we were put aboard freight trains. They call them 40 and 8s, 8 cattle and 40 men. But
Right.
we had 50 or 55 in there, and no place to defecate, no food. And we finally ended up in Salag 7A, which is the town in Germany is called Moosburg.
Uh-huh.
And I was there until April 29th, 1945, when Patton's Third Army came through, the 14th Armored Division, and we were liberated on a Sunday.
Okay. Were you awarded any medals or citations?
I have the several air medals.
And what did you get them for?
Every 5 missions they gave you an air medal. That's
okay.
my recognition.
Mm-hmm.
And after you get the first one, then you get clusters to put on the other one. And I had the Purple Heart. And that's all I can think of.
So you got the Purple Heart, you were hit?
Yeah, I was hitting the knee on one mission. It was a very easy Purple Heart.
Okay. So you were an officer, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Were you involved in any battle planning?
No.
No, okay. What were the circumstances surrounding your injury?
I was I was flying to we went to a target in northern Italy. This was after I became airplane commander,
Mm-hmm.
and I was assigned a new crew that day. And this little co-pilot was my co-pilot,
Right.
and he couldn't fly worth a damn.
Okay.
And I got hit very slightly, but I thought I was hit a lot worse than I was. In my imagination, I could feel the blood running down my leg, which it wasn't. But I couldn't turn the airplane over to this guy because we had to stay in formation,
Right.
and he couldn't fly worth a damn. When I finally got on the ground, even before I went to the flight surgeon, I went in and I said, "Don't ever put me with that man again," because I had to keep flying,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't even know I was going to get a Purple Heart until I was told to be out there on the playground.
Right. Okay. How did you stay in touch with your family?
I didn't stay in touch with my family. In prison, you were given so many, like postcards and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I mailed some of them out, but I never received any mail from any of my family or from anyone while I was in prison camp.
Did you find out later on whether or not they had received your correspondence?
I don't remember that.
Okay.
I have a letter
Mm-hmm.
that I just read in the last few days.
Right.
Barbara, that to my parents, after I was liberated and while I was waiting in up near Marseille, France,
Right.
in a camp called Camp Lucky Strike.
Mm-hmm.
I was there on my birthday, May 20th, 1945.
Right.
And I wrote back to my parents. I have the letter here. It said, I'm a free man, and start saving up steaks and lots of whiskey because I have a lot to make up or something like that. I'll show it to you.
Okay. Okay. Did you what was it? Well, you know, in both instances, in the prison camp, but also, you know, when you were on just a regular base, how was the food both ways? Did you have much food to eat while you were a POW?
Well, no, of course not. But
Mm-hmm.
when I first got in there, which was the first week in July, we were getting Red Cross parcels, one for man per week. And then there came a time around September when it was cut down to half a parcel per man per week.
Mm-hmm.
The food that the Germans themselves supplied consisted of kohlrabi, barley soup, a little piece of some kind of meat, horse meat maybe, and a few things like that. It wouldn't have been, didn't know how good we had it until the parcel was shut off. So after that, it wasn't good. Someone asked me just recently my opinion of how the Red Cross did, and I told them that from my standpoint, I had to give them an A. I don't know anything about the politics behind it or what happened before that I didn't see.
Mm-hmm.
All I know is that I lost about 30 pounds
Right.
while I was in the camp,
Uh-huh.
but I was still healthy, and I was still able to make that march.
Right.
And the food at the base, it was powdered eggs. But you know, it was substantial.
Right.
Um,
But it wasn't like home cooking.
no, it wasn't a.
Okay. I'm sure you did. It's kind of obvious, but you know, did you suffer from PTSD? How did you deal with the pressure and the stress?
While I was in there,
Yeah.
I had no problem while I was in there.
So you were okay? What about afterwards?
Well, afterwards, and I had a lot of problems.
Uh-huh.
And I had my hands and feet frozen. You can see.
Okay, that's still the remains of what, frostbite?
Yeah, when you're at altitude,
Mm-hmm.
and they gave me a 10% disability.
Uh-huh.
When I got discharged, the doctor looked at my hands and feet and asked me about them. I told him, well, I got them frozen while I was flying. So he made out a paper, and I got 10%. About a year went by, and I got called to go up to Watervliet Armory up near Albany. And there was a doctor there, and he looked at him and went away, and shortly thereafter they took the 10% away.
Really?
But I got it back
Okay.
about 50 years later.
Uh-huh. Okay, let me just adjust this a little bit here. Oh. Okay. Next question is, let's see what I got here. I think I got you pretty much. Okay. What did you do when you were on leave?
You mean when I first got home?
Well, either way, you know, how much leave? Tell me about any leave experiences during or when you got home on leave. We'll save that when you got home for a little bit later. Did you go on leave at any time while you were in the service?
When I graduated from flight school, I think I had, I know I had a few days,
Uh-huh.
maybe 5 days or something like that. And then we reported to Salt Lake City, and we got assigned to a crew. And then we flew to Pocatello, Idaho. We trained there for a while, and then we went out to Muroc Dry Lake and trained there, and then overseas.
Okay. You said you've been to Casablanca, you've been to Austria. Where else have you been stateside or in the European theater? Where'd you go to basic training?
Texas. Greenville, Texas.
Okay, where'd you go after that? Just let's go through every place you were while you were in the service.
Well, the first place was San Antonio.
Uh-huh.
And the first flying was Corsicana, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Second phase of flying was in Greenville, Texas.
Right.
And the third and last phase of training was at Ellington Field in Houston.
All right.
So it was all done in the state of Texas at those 4 different places.
Okay. And then after that, when you headed overseas, you said you went to Casablanca?
Went to Casablanca, and we stayed there for a few days. Didn't do anything. We checked the list of men's mail, you know, to see that, you know, they pull stuff like, can't tell you where I am, but I saw Rick the other day. Stuff like that.
Right, okay. All right, let's see. Obviously you have photographs. What did you think of officers or your fellow soldiers? You were an officer yourself. So what did you think of your fellow soldiers and enlisted?
They were the greatest.
Okay. Did you keep a personal diary?
No.
Okay.
I
So
wish,
go ahead, what?
I wish I had.
Okay. Do you recall the day your service ended? Where were you? And what did you do in the days and the weeks afterward?
Well, this was after the war had ended. I stayed in for a year or so.
Mm-hmm.
And it was nothing unusual. I just was discharged. Routine. Then I realized that, what am I going to do? Didn't have a job.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't qualified for anything except flying airplanes.
Right.
And at that time, the airlines weren't quite ready to start hiring.
Mm-hmm.
They just needed more airplanes. There came a time when I could have gotten on the airline.
Okay. So did you work or did you go back to school? Did you use the GI Bill for your education?
Yes.
Oh, you did. So okay, so you went back to school or work or which came first? Go ahead.
I got a job with Turner Construction Company. They were renovating a private boys' school near my town. And I walked up one day and there were two men in the hall, one guy with a suit on, and I asked them if they were doing any hiring. They said, "What do you do? What do you want?" And I said, "I want a labor foreman." That's I'd done nothing except labor, but I wanted a labor foreman.
Right.
So the other fellow said, "Well, do you think you can handle it?" "Oh yeah, I think I can handle it." And the other guy, who turned out to be a vice president of the company, said, "I think you can too." So I got a job as a labor foreman.
Mm-hmm.
And during the summer, a young man came down and got a job, and it turned out his father ran the store in the town up north, and that he was on home from college. I had made applications to several colleges, but I hadn't had any reply. So I put him working over to one side, and I went over and picked his brain. And I found out that he was going to Siena College up near Albany, New York.
Right.
It was a Catholic school, but they took anybody other than Catholics. So I called and got an appointment. I went up there on a Saturday, and I met with the Dean of Discipline, and I was accepted. So I went to college then for a few years, and then I applied to law school. And a lot of boys were applying to law school, and some would get a letter saying they were rejected or a letter saying they were accepted. And I wrote this to Albany Law, and I didn't get anything back. So I just called up the school. I talked to Mrs. Strode,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, "I'd like to have an appointment to see the dean." She said, "Well, I can't say that you're going to see the dean, but I can get you an appointment." I said, "Well, I'm going to see the dean." Well, she gave me an appointment. I went on Saturday morning, and I did have an appointment with the dean.
Okay.
So I went up and saw the dean. He was a tough guy. He always rubbed his beard backward, and he had glasses. And the conversation, finally he said something about, "Whether you want to go to law school?" And I said, "Well, I think I deserve a chance." He says, "I do too." And when he said that, I jumped out of the chair I was going, because it was time to shut up. He said, wait a minute, sit down, I got to do some paperwork.
Right.
That's how I got into law school.
Okay. Okay, cool. Did you make any close friendships while in the service?
Well, probably
And did you continue those relationships? And for how long? Go ahead.
Probably the one who was closest, became closest, was Tom Bigush, my co-pilot, when we got shot down. And he had been a member of another crew, which is a much closer knit crew than ours. And his cousin was Elise Knox, an actress in Hollywood.
You wanna? Let me get a. Can you just put that? Just good. Perfect. 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 Barbara, you got any more stuff back there you want me to videotape?
Sure. This is the picture of Elise Knox.
That's good. Good.
She's the movie.
Hold it. Hold it. Good.
She's the movie star that they.
Oh yeah. Look at that. Wow. What else you got?
Oh gosh. Did you?
Because I'm plugged in here, so I can't move.
Did you tell them about what you did after you were released from the prison camp? How you
Oh,
met the
no, I
family?
didn't know.
This is a very important part.
Go ahead. Be my guest.
Well, when we were liberated, there were thousands of prisoners, and there were also Russian prisoners. And they then put the American guards, of course, had fled. I mean, the German guards had fled. So they put American guards on the barbed wire to keep us in there. And I was sort of pissed off at the world. I thought, well, that GI is not going to kill me. So when he turned his back, I went through the fence and I went into the little town of Moosburg.
Right.
And it was so peaceful. And I was walking up a path along the stream, and I came to a house that had a fence around it, and there were 3 little children there. Mary Ann, Hans, and Irene. Mary Ann and Hans were brother and sister, and Irene was their cousin. They couldn't speak English, and I didn't speak German. I went in the gate to pick a flower that I saw in the lawn. But they made it known that they wanted me to come in the house. And I found out that they wanted me to come in the house. Their mother, aunt, and grandmother were in the house, and the Russians weren't behaving at all. So they wanted somebody to protect them. And when I went in, there was an English fighter pilot there already, and he and I stayed in the house. The ladies went upstairs the next day, and they brought down 2 bicycles. And the Englishman and I would take the bicycle, we'd ride out, and we'd get a chicken, we'd get some vegetables, some honey maybe, and we'd come back, and these ladies would cook, and they'd cook up a storm.
Okay.
Food.
What do you got? Here, if you.
These are the children that he met.
I'm going to superimpose that right on here.
Okay, wait a minute.
Keep going, right? A little bit further away. No, I'm wrong. Hold it. Hold it. Those are the.
That's the 3 German children.
Talking to the camera, not you. Good, good. No. We got them. Next.
And at the 50th reunion, when we went back,
Right.
Gene went back to the original house. And this was the original house that he was in Moosburg. Okay.
Okay, you know what? Hold it. Can you hold it for a second? As soon as I find my, I think, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. Trying to, I think my, oh, there it is. Well, maybe that's, wait a minute, hold it. Let me,
It's on there, is it? No.
it's, let's try it again. Not back just to, there. I got it.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then this is when we went back. This is Mary Ann and her husband.
Okay, hold on. Let me, a little bit. Got it?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's So
I'm
we've
used-
been back to visit this family several times.
Oh, really?
Yes, and in fact, we're on the fourth generation now.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I got some questions to wrap up now. You obviously you joined Veterans Organization, the XPOWs.
Yeah, I'm a member of the American Legion all my life.
Okay. And obviously your career after the war was you were an attorney.
Yes,
Okay. How many years did you do that?
Forever.
I did it until I retired.
Forever. Okay. That's a good number.
Yeah,
30 years? 25?
oh, more than that.
Okay.
I didn't get out of law school until I was 30 years old,
Uh-huh.
uh,
But you're only 39 now, so
more or less.
9 years. I thought you said forever, but I don't know. We all think differently about time. Yes, I sure do. A little
Far
further
away.
away. A little
Okay.
further, yeah.
Oh.
Oh, be careful, Barb. Now let me feed or hurt yourself.
What's that?
Let's see if we can. Gotcha. One more time. I want to get another one. Got it. Okay, cool.
Cool.
Uh-huh.
What's that word?
Your medals.
They're in metals. Good.
Oh.
Good. We're getting everything here. Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
No, it didn't at the time. But later in life,
Uh-huh.
I thought about it seriously, and war is hell.
Mm.
Doesn't make any sense at all.
Okay.
And I didn't think about all the people that I probably killed. I'm glad I didn't think about it. But I was on my 44th mission,
Oh.
so I had a lot under my belt. Now that doesn't mean that I went to a target 44 times, because some targets you got double count, like Palesti, you got double count, Munich, you double count, and so forth. But I had a lot of missions, and thank God I didn't really dwell on what was happening below when I dropped those bombs.
Right.
But I've thought about it a lot in later years.
Did you attend any reunions?
Yes, I didn't at first, because I was too busy just making a living.
Mm-hmm.
But I have attended some of the prisoner of war reunions, and I also went to a couple of the 450th Bomb Group, but I found that the people that were attending these meetings were a group that were just socializing. They hadn't really flown combat.
Right. You want to go, if you'll stand there, Barb, and I'll...
Explain this to him.
Well,
Can you...
the playing card company
Oh, okay.
would send a deck of cards through,
Right.
and these cards, when they were put in water, they would turn in, and you could make a map
Oh, okay.
for escape purposes.
Hold on. Hold that boat. You can. You can grab that bottom right there by you.
Straighten it out.
Just,
Yeah.
uh-huh. And you almost got that, Barb. Okay, hold on, and we're gonna... Here it is. I got the button. Bingo, one more time. Got it. Cool. Uh-huh.
Now,
All right.
now, of course, I didn't know about this until after the war,
Uh-huh.
because in there they had it pretty well organized. You just didn't go out and jump or run or try to get over the fence. You had to go to the X committee first, and they would help you, and if they accepted your plan. So that I was never involved in an escape, and therefore I never saw this stuff until after the war.
Uh-huh.
The camp that I was in, I got there in July, 1st of July.
Right.
About 3 months before was the one that you've probably seen, The Great Escape.
Uh-huh, yes I have. A couple of times. Several
It
times.
took place in that camp.
2 more questions. How did your How did your service experience affect your life? What is that you have, Barb? You want to hold that up for me? Hold that, and what is
I'll
that?
explain it.
What is that? Hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. Let's see if we got it. Careful. You're still going? Yeah, I'm still going. Well, that's okay. What does that say? It says, hold it one more time for me. It says, soldiers of the British Commonwealth, soldiers of the United States of America. What is that?
They offered us a chance to fight, not to fight, but to go with the German side against the Russians.
Oh, okay. Who offered you that?
The Germans.
Okay.
They passed this out to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
I've forgotten which camp we were in when they did it.
So they try and recruit you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, yeah. How did your service and experiences affect your life?
Well, the war itself made it possible for me to become better educated. My thinking was affected, there's no question about it. I believed in what you might call military discipline.
Right.
I believed in discipline. I would say that's about all.
Okay.
I also, it affected the way I looked. I dressed immaculately. My pants were always pressed. My shoes were always shined, just like you had to do in the military.
Okay.
I never was a slob.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's a good thing. Do you have, is there anything else that you'd like to add that we haven't covered in the interview?
Let's see, I told you about the German family. Anything else, Barb?
Well, a million things, but I just can't think of everything.
How did you even say that?
And you know,
Somebody
the older I
flew
get, the more I like to talk about. One thing reminds you of the other,
Uh-huh.
and then you become a bore.
Well, this hasn't been boring at all. But anyway, I just want to thank you very much. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your hospitality and allowing us to come to your home
I have lunch for us.
and get this interview. Okay, I'm going to shut this down and.
You know, Gene, you want to take Carl to